Welcome to Apostolic Bible College's Christian Family Ministry 111, Lesson 10, the first of two lessons on parenting. We have a relationship with our children that is unique. We need to understand the roles of both parties in this relationship. First, the roles of the child, which will help us better understand the roles of the parent as the child develops from birth all the way through adulthood. In preparation, you should read chapter 9 from your Christian Family text. If you haven't already read this chapter, stop the lesson now and take time to read it thoroughly. Note the objectives for this lesson. When you finish, you should be able to describe the role of the child in the family, the role of the parents in the family, and describe the concept of discipline in the family and the different levels of discipline in the family. Some couples choose not to have children. This is neither biblical nor non-biblical. It is simply a choice. If a couple does not wish to have children or wishes to delay having children for a time, then they need to agree on a method of birth control. There are many methods. Some are highly effective. Some are ineffective and based on superstitions. The method itself, however, may be problematic, depending on when you believe life begins. There are a number of opinions as to when life begins. The four most popular are: at conception, the fetus is a human, a person. The soul begins with conception. Or during the first trimester, when the mother knows she is pregnant, at the stirring of the baby, at a detectable heartbeat. Or during the second or third trimester, when the baby begins to move just before the birth, at viability. Or at birth, when the baby takes its first breath. Let's talk about each of these birth control methods. An implant is rated at 99% effective. It is a hormonal method in that it releases a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation and lasts up to 5 years. However, in some cases, ovulation can happen and the egg can be fertilized. In this case, the hormone acts as an abortifacient in that it prevents the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. This method, as well as all the other hormonal methods, is unacceptable if you hold to the view that life begins at conception. An IUD, or intrauterine device, is rated at 99% effective. Some release a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation. Others use copper, preventing sperm from traveling to the egg, and last 5 to 12 years. Again, this can sometimes allow fertilization. The birth control shot is rated at 94% effective. It is a hormonal method in that it is a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation and is injected every 3 months. The method can sometimes allow fertilization. A vaginal ring is rated at 91% effective. It contains a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation and is inserted for 3 weeks, off 1 week, for up to a year. This method can sometimes allow fertilization. The patch is rated at 91% effective. It releases a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation and is applied weekly. The method can sometimes allow fertilization. The birth control pill is rated at 91% effective. It releases a hormone that prevents pregnancy by stopping ovulation and is taken daily. This method can sometimes allow fertilization. Leaving the hormone methods and moving on to what we call the barrier methods. The condom is rated at 85% effective and is a barrier method in that it is a small, thin pouch that covers the penis before sex and prevents semen from entering the vagina and is used each time you have sex. If there is a hole in the condom or it is used incorrectly, it can allow fertilization, but does not prevent the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. The internal or female condom is rated at 79% effective and is a barrier method. A small, thin pouch covers the inside of the vagina during sex and prevents semen from reaching an egg and is used each time you have sex. If there is a hole in the condom, or if it is used incorrectly, it can allow fertilization, but does not prevent the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. The diaphragm is rated at 88% effective and is a barrier method. A small, shallow cup is inserted into the vagina before sex and prevents semen from reaching an egg and is used each time you have sex. If it is used incorrectly, it can allow fertilization, but does not prevent the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. The cervical cap is rated at 86% effective and is a barrier method, almost exactly like the diaphragm. The sponge is rated at 88% effective and is a barrier and chemical method in that it is a small round sponge that prevents semen from entering the vagina both as a barrier as well as a spermicide which kills sperm before they can fertilize an egg. It is inserted into the vagina before and each time you have sex. If it is used incorrectly, it can allow fertilization, but does not prevent the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. Spermicide is rated at 86% effective and is a chemical gel inserted into the vagina before sex, which prevents semen from reaching an egg and is used before and each time you have sex. If it is used incorrectly, it can allow fertilization, but does not prevent the egg from adhering to the uterus wall. This next set of methods are called timing methods. Natural family planning, or the rhythm method, is rated at 88% effective and is known as a timing method. It is a variety of ways to track a menstrual cycle so that you know when the wife is ovulating. Sex is avoided at the peak fertile days, or another method is used. Withdrawal is rated at 78% effective and is a timing method. The penis is removed just before ejaculation. Breastfeeding is rated at 98% effective and is a timing method. Breastfeeding women do not ovulate. Therefore, there are no eggs to be fertilized. Abstinence is rated at 100% effective and is the ultimate timing method. There is no vaginal sex at all. There are two surgical methods. The first is sterilization. It is a surgical procedure done on the woman which results in the permanent closure of fallopian tubes, which prevents egg from reaching the uterus and being fertilized. The second is vasectomy. It is a surgical procedure done on the man, which results in the permanent closure of the tubes that carry sperm, preventing sperm from entering the semen. When our children are born, it is a wonderful occasion. I have 2 daughters. When my first grandchild was born, I have lived long enough to share these words of wisdom. Now that you're going to have a child, your life will never be the same again. So, a decision to have a child should be, when do you want things to change? You can take those words negatively or positively. Children bring joy. Psalm 127 verses 3 through 5. Sons are a heritage from the Lord. Children are a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are sons born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. Children occasionally bring sorrow, but the joy far outweighs the sorrow. In the difficult times, and there will be many difficult times, one thing is important to remember. It won't always be this way. Parenting happens in phases. Sometimes long bouts of difficulty seem to never end. But be sure that what you have planted in them, the seeds of purpose, will someday bear fruit. Also, remember that if we raise our children in the way they should go, they still have a free will, and sometimes that free will lead them astray. The wayward child should not increase our guilt and condemnation, but rather cause us to redouble our prayer life and our devotion to his words and his promises. It is therefore important to understand the way a child acts and thinks in order to best deal with that child. In many cultures around the world, parents respond to babies in a very similar fashion. Our conversations with babies are often higher pitched and often not in words that are understandable. But we would not think of talking that way to an older child. A famous anthropologist named Erik Erikson described several distinct stages of development that are common to all children as they mature physically and mentally. This first stage he calls infancy and goes from birth to 18 months. There are many challenges during this stage. We grow more physically and mentally during these 18 months than at any other time in our lives. This stage is when we develop basic trust or mistrust, and the key word is hope. During the first or second year of life, the major emphasis is on the mother and father's nurturing ability and care for a child, especially in terms of visual contact and touch. The child will develop optimism, trust, confidence, and security if properly cared for and handled. If a child does not experience trust, he or she may develop insecurity, worthlessness, and general mistrust of the world. There will be something missing in their psychological development that can never be reproduced later in their life. This is why it is so important to spend a lot of time holding, touching, and speaking to children at this age. Erikson goes on with this second stage called toddler or early childhood. It goes from 18 months to 3 years. Keep in mind that the transition from one stage to another is not sudden. Months before they become 18 months old, they may begin to exhibit characteristics of the toddler stage, and months after, they may still exhibit characteristics of infancy. This stage is when we develop autonomy versus shame, and the key word is will. We commonly refer to this stage as the terrible twos, because they begin to show their own will to do what they want to do instead of what we want them to do. We celebrate their first unaided steps at about 1 year, but by 2 years, when they run everywhere they go, we begin to wonder why we celebrated those first steps. At this point, the child has an opportunity to build self-esteem and autonomy as they learn new skills and right from wrong. The well-cared-for child is sure of themselves, carrying themselves with self-esteem rather than shame. During this time of the terrible twos, defiance, temper tantrums, and stubbornness can also appear. Children tend to be vulnerable during this stage, sometimes feeling shame and low self-esteem during an inability to learn critical skills. The child in this stage doesn't understand what normal is. If the child is raised in an abusive home, they grow up believing that all children come from abusive homes and are surprised when they learn that their home was not typical. If you told a child to walk up the wall and across the ceiling, they don't have any experience that tells them that this is not possible, and will look for the best route to avoid the furniture and light fixtures. The next stage is one of my favorites. This stage is called preschooler. It goes from 3 years to 5 years. The stage is when we develop initiative versus guilt, and the key word is purpose. During this period, we experience a desire to copy the adults around us and take initiative in creating play situations. We make up stories with dolls, toy phones, miniature cars, playing out roles in a trial universe, experimenting with the blueprint for what we believe it means to be an adult. We also begin to use that wonderful word for exploring the world, why. This fourth stage is called school age. It goes from 6 years to 12 years. The stage is when we develop industry versus inferiority, and the key word is competence. As a parent, we need to realize that for the first time in the child's life, you are not the center of the universe. And sometimes parents have great sorrow about this, especially mothers. But look at this as a first step in the normal development toward happy, independent adults. That is our goal. During this stage, we are capable of learning, creating, and accomplishing numerous new skills and knowledge, thus developing a sense of industry. This is also a very social stage of development. And if we experience unresolved feelings of inadequacy and inferiority among our peers, we can have serious problems in terms of competence and self-esteem. As the world expands a bit, our most significant relationship is with the school and neighborhood. Parents are no longer the complete authorities they once were, although they are still important. This fifth stage is one that many parents look at with dread. This fifth stage is called Adolescence. It goes from 12 years to 18 years. This stage is when we develop identity versus role confusion. And the key word is fidelity. There is a significant event that occurs about this age that changes everything about the child. It thrusts them from the school-age child into adolescence, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. Can you guess what this event is? Puberty. Physical changes begin to make them look more adult-like. Because of this, it also affects the way they think. They put away their toys and begin more adult-like behaviors. Up until this fifth stage, development depends on what is done to a person. At this point, development now depends primarily upon what a person does. An adolescent must struggle to discover and find his or her own identity while negotiating and struggling with social interactions and fitting in and developing a sense of morality and right from wrong. Adolescents begin to develop a strong affiliation and devotion to ideals, causes, and friends. Some attempt to delay entrance to adulthood and withdraw from responsibilities. This is called moratorium. Those unsuccessful with this stage tend to experience role confusion and upheaval. This last stage ends with an adult mind and body in its fully developed form. This sixth stage is called young adult. It goes from 18 years to 35 years. This stage is when we develop intimacy and solidarity versus isolation, and the key word is love. The human brain begins to develop at conception and continues to develop throughout all of these stages. An 18 or 20-year-old person may believe that they are fully grown, fully developed, when in reality, the human brain will not reach its full development until a person is about 25 years old. At the young adult stage, people tend to seek companionship and love. Some also begin to settle down and start families, although it seems to have been pushed back farther in recent years. Young adults seek deep intimacy and satisfying relationships, but if unsuccessful, isolation may occur. Significant relationships at this stage are with marital partners and friends. If someone is not married by the time they are 35, the percentage of adults that will go on and marry later is very low. Before beginning the next lesson, be sure to read chapter 10 from your Christian Family text.